All right, well, thank you for joining us this month for our MCB Lunch and Learn for April. Joining us today will be Jason with SIMCOG, which is Southwest Missouri Council of Governments, and Cindy with the Regional Planning Commission. Thank you for joining us. I do want to let you know we do these the third Wednesday of every month at noon. If you have a topic you would like us to discuss or speakers you would like us to bring on, feel free to reach out to one of the Missouri Community Betterment Board, and we will get some connections and hopefully get them on our show. I am going to go ahead and let you all know we are recording this in case you did not hear that when you joined. So just be aware that it will be on our YouTube channel, and we will have links for that as well. Joining us today is Jason Ray, AICP. He is the Executive Director of the Southwest Missouri Council of Governments, also known as SIMCOG, a regional planning commission serving 10 counties located in Springfield, Missouri, and is the Director of Missouri State University's Center of Resource Planning and Management, which is also known as CRPM. I'm going to go ahead and let Jason take over, and we will have question and answer at the end. So if you have some questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. Jason, go ahead.
Well, thank you very much. It's nice to be with you this afternoon. It's a beautiful sunny day, at least here in Springfield. Yeah, as she mentioned, I'm Executive Director of SIMCOG. We're based here in Southwest Missouri in Springfield, but Cindy is the Executive Director of the Mark Twain Regional Planning Commission in Perry, Missouri. So kind of in the northeastern part of the state. There's 19 of us councils of governments and regional planning commissions across the state. Cindy also serves as the president and chairperson of our statewide association, the Missouri Association of Council of Governments, or MACOG. So I'm going to let Cindy give kind of a high-level overview of what regional planning commissions or councils of governments do kind of statewide and how we coordinate statewide efforts. Talk about some of the common services that we all provide. And then when she's finished, I'm going to talk a little bit more about specific projects that we provide, at least in our region in Southwest Missouri, and highlight a few things that several of our other partner or peers across the state also provide, but kind of not duplicate what Cindy talks about, but kind of give a little bit more specific examples and highlight some ideas that we can be better engaged with your community, either the local government, which is kind of primarily what councils of governments and RPCs serve, or stakeholder organizations like community betterment groups or other economic development organizations or community groups. So I'm going to let Cindy talk about our statewide network through MACOG, and then I'll follow her after her presentation. Cindy?
Okay, thank you, Jason. And can you guys see my screen?
We cannot.
Oh, I am sorry. Can you now?
Yes, we're good.
Okay, so sorry. Oh my goodness. Sorry about this, guys. I don't know what happened. Oh. Okay, can you see it now? Okay, so as Jason said, there are 19 Missouri RPCs throughout the state. Every city and county in Missouri is covered by an RPC, which we find that this is a great benefit to our organization. Each RPC is unique, and the services they provide are specific to their region's needs while also providing statewide services. And as Jason said, he is from Springfield, and I'm from in Perry, Missouri, and we are two different parts of the state. And so we have to tailor each of our services to meet the needs of our regions. In Missouri, EDDs, or economic development districts, are known as regional planning commissions or council governments. And so my organization and Jason's is known as council governments, but other ones are in the state are regional planning commissions, and that was just the name that was chosen when we were incorporated in the 60s. So this is a state of the, a map of the state of the different regional planning commissions in the state, and this can be accessed on the MACOG website. And if you go to our MACOG website and want to click on one of the regions, that will bring up the contact information for that region. The Missouri Association of Council of Governments, this is the statewide organization that represents all of Missouri's RPCs. Every RPC is a member of MACOG, and the RPC director attends a monthly MACOG meeting, which is held on the first Thursday of every month. And this is a great opportunity for our statewide planning partners to attend and provide updates to us. And this allows us to obtain up-to-date information about programs that may be coming out from that organization. The RPCs adopts a minimum standards and financial practices for conducting business in Missouri that was developed by MACOG. And we also follow a code of ethics that was established by MACOG as well. And this code of ethics ensures that all RPCs are operating in the same manner. MACOG does have a statewide planner, and his name is Doug Hermes, and some of you may know him. We contract with him, and he represents our RPCs. He works with state agencies to develop projects, and Doug is the main contact for MACOG. And we feel like this is a very strong point for MACOG of having the statewide planner, because this enables our organizations or planning partners to contact one individual and to work out details. So if we have a planning partner that wants to work with the RPCs in the state, they can work out the details by contacting Doug, and instead of having to contact all of the 19 RPCs. Some of the statewide projects that are already in existence include the Missouri Department of Transportation, and each of the RPCs has a Transportation Advisory Committee, which this enables us to focus on projects in our local area. And then we rank those projects, and they can be included into the STIP and then implemented for projects. Then we also contract with Office of Homeland Security. We have regional Homeland Security Oversight Committees, and this is where the committees vote on projects to fund for to provide equipment out into each region of the state. There are 9 throughout the state of Missouri. We also work with the State Emergency Management Agency to conduct hazard mitigation plans. Every county in the state is required to have a hazard mitigation plans, and those plans are written by the RPCs. Included in those plans are projects to which mitigate natural disasters or disasters. And so then we can work with those counties and cities that are in those plans to find funding for the projects that they identified. We also are working with state organizations under the ARPA funding, and those state organizations are broadband. We work with the Office of Broadband. They have contracted with each of the RPCs in the state to provide broadband services, such as to find out what local needs are and to hold meetings locally to identify those needs. We are also working with the Department of Health, and that is through a confinement project. And that is in the very early stages of that, but they are going to partner with the RPCs to implement that project. As a state organization, we do have the MACOG RPC Advantage campaign, and this is where every RPC in the state will assist cities and counties with application writing, identify local needs, research eligibility and criteria for funding, and provide administration of projects. Missouri's successful collaboration is when approaching state departments to work with RPCs, the message is the entire state of Missouri is covered and services can be provided statewide. We find this as a very strong point of MACOG. And then state departments can have one contract and not have to contract with 19 different RPCs to deliver services. And this is where it's key that our statewide planner, Doug, works with those statewide state departments to work out the details of the contract. We have a website. It is macog.org, and I'm sorry, the screen says .com, but it is .org, and so you can go there and learn more about our statewide association. And now I'll turn it back to Jason so he can provide more details on the services that SimCog provides. And
thank you, Cindy.
Let me.
Yeah, if you'll stop sharing.
Yes.
I'll switch over
Yep.
to mine. All right, is that good? Okay.
Yes.
So thanks again. So that was a great kind of high level overview of our statewide association and some of the state agencies that we partner with for statewide collaboration. Because of the partnerships with all 19 regional planning commissions and our state agencies like MoDOT, Department of Homeland Security, those state agencies kind of offset the cost of the services that we're able to provide at the local and regional level. So we encourage with those statewide programs or projects that you get engaged with those, especially right now. We're looking at a lot of broadband public engagement for how the cities or how the state's going to spend. I think it's something like $400 million in broadband investment. So it's a great opportunity to get your voice heard through the regional planning commissions and kind of filtered up to the state agencies that are overseeing those projects. So just quick introduction again, Jason Ray, Executive Director of the Council of Governments here. Before this, I was the Deputy Director of the Regional Planning Commission over the Joplin area. I was there during the EF5 tornado that they experienced. I've also been a Springfield Planning and Zoning Commissioner and active in a lot of other professional associations such as the American Planning Association and the South Missouri Grant Writers. Just a fun fact about me, I always like to throw in there. If you search on YouTube, you could probably find an episode of Mob Wives on VH1 that I make a brief appearance in. I can't tell you any more details than that, or else you might end up swimming with the fishes, so to speak. Our particular organization, SIMCOG, is pretty unique. There's over 400 regional planning commissions across the nation. We've got 19 here in Missouri, but SIMCOG is the only one that is affiliated with a state university. So the Center for Resource Planning and Management is part of Missouri State University and is the administrative agent for SIMCOG. CRPM has been around since 1979. We formed a partnership with them in 1989. The center was originally set up to provide cartography or mapping services for state agencies and local governments. And it's been a really unique and great relationship. So we can tap into university resources, students, faculty, and other research opportunities to help deliver our services through the Regional Planning Commission. Also through the center, we provide additional support to the other Regional Planning Commissions across the state. As Cindy mentioned, you can go to the maycog.org website and find your local regional planning commission. Just again, we're quasi-governmental agencies, so we are, this sounds terrifying, but we're set up by government for government, but it works. Each regional planning commission was set up through state statutes, an executive order of the governor, and then a petition from the local governments within that region. And we do serve more than just local governments, but that's kind of the prime purpose that we were set up to oversee growth and development of our regions and provide services directly to local governments and then stakeholders that help our communities grow and develop. Like we've got 10 counties here in SIMCOG. We've got 68 participating local government members. We've grown tremendously since I started here in 2015, but we also have non-governmental representation on the Council of Governments or Board of Directors, as well as associate members. And then each of our state legislators also serve on the Regional Planning Commission boards and councils of governments. So here's kind of the nuts and bolts of services that most regional planning commissions provide, but particularly we do. Cindy touched on the transportation planning. I'll highlight that a little bit more, each of these a little bit more. Local comprehensive planning or strategic planning as well. Regional coordination, just in general, talking about issues of regional concern and regional policy. Economic development. So each of the regional planning commissions in Missouri are the federally designated economic development districts. And we receive direct federal economic development dollars to help our communities and economic development organizations plan for economic development and implement economic development strategies. Most RPCs, especially us, we're very passionate about public engagement. So we're really great about doing community surveys, hosting community events, public open houses, really getting feedback from the public so that we've got a lot of public and local buy-in into projects that we're putting public resources behind. We also provide grant writing and administration services, primarily again to local governments, but other stakeholder organizations as well. And then I like to describe regional planning commissions as a clearinghouse of information. So we are really good at collecting lots of information from various state and federal agencies and partner organizations, and then disseminating that out to our members and stakeholder organizations within our region. For example, like we in SIMCOG, we have a once-a-month publication that we call the Southwest Missouri Local Government Briefings. And that is just like a consolidated list of news and resources that impacts our region, really cool projects that we might want to highlight. And then the most popular part is grant funding announcements that are available currently. So more specific about our transportation planning services. Like Cindy said, we contact with MoDOT, each of the RPCs, and we facilitate a Transportation Advisory Committee, or a TAC. Those TACs are made up of representatives from across the regions, and they identify and prioritize local transportation needs. In Missouri, we have a grassroots up approach for transportation planning. So projects that get into our statewide transportation improvement program start at the local and regional level and work their way up to the state. So we don't have, MoDOT headquarters in Jefferson City dictating local and regional transportation investments on the state system. We also prioritize road and bridge projects, especially projects that are regionally significant, but also local projects like bicycle and pedestrian projects. And that can really come into play when we prioritize those projects and identify local sidewalk or bike trail needs as a high priority. That can play into grant opportunities through the Transportation Alternative Program, or TAP, which has been heavily utilized by a lot of our local governments in building out their sidewalk networks. Also, all regional planning commissions right now are updating their regional public transit, human services transportation plans. So these plans are 5-year updates, and having that plan updated allows any entity that provides transit services within the region to apply for Federal Transit Administration funds. So a project that they apply for to FTA has to be identified and kind of rooted back into that regional transit plan. So we also invite human service agencies, so like sheltered workshops, senior centers, and others that might benefit from rural transit providers to participate in that planning process as well and identify the gaps in transit services. A lot of the RPCs, like us, provide traffic counts. So we've got this radar that we can attach to a pole, and we can do local traffic counts, maybe for an area that's looking at maybe some new development. We can do a before and after traffic study, or we can also capture speeds. So if there's an enforcement issue, we also have a speed trailer that kind of flashes, your speed, the speed that you're going, to try to calm down some of the traffic in our local communities. We also have a local traffic calming demonstration, and I don't know if you can see the picture very well, but we've got a lending library of materials, so colorful cones, kind of fake plants, hay bales, tires, and we can install a temporary crosswalk. We've got radar guns, and we can do a before and during study of how these traffic calming demonstrations of basically like bumping out the curbs and adding crossing walks and other pedestrian accommodations can help slow down traffic in our neighborhoods. Every regional planning commission can and does do sidewalk assessments. Again, this is a great tool to go towards TAP grant applications, identifying just good, fair, poor, kind of objective observations of the sidewalk network in your community. An example of a project that here's some pictures of some sidewalks that we've experienced in some of our inventories. We've also, in our region, helped coordinate a US Highway 60 master plan in coordination with a railroad. So the goal of that plan was to make that corridor safer by installing some additional interchanges, but also removing some at-grade railroad crossings. So building some overpasses that go over the railroads. It was a high a pretty unsafe corridor. It's been a great partnership. And since we got this plan put together at the end of 2019, we've already been able to see over about $30 million worth of investment for new interchanges and removal of at-grade railroad crossings to make those communities safer. And that kind of goes into what my usual saying is that I get quoted a lot saying is that funding follows planning. So regional planning commissions were really great at both of those things, helping communities put together a plan, looking at transportation corridor plans, identifying projects, putting thought and planning into it, and then coming back and doing some grant applications and grant administration to actually implement those plans. But by having projects identified in a local or regional plan can really help with grant applications, because state and federal agencies want to know that they're not just throwing money at somebody's pet project, that there's actually public engagement, public buy-in, and that there's been thought and planning into what we're spending our public resources on. Examples of additional grants that we work with is Recreational Trails Program, or RTP. That's really great for building out trails and other kind of recreational opportunities. Same thing with Land and Water Conservation Fund, LWCF. That is a popular program to build out trails or park improvements. We're currently working with the city of Billings and improving their local city park, enhancing their softball fields, putting in a new scoreboard, providing ADA accommodations, and enhancing a parking lot with them. Just a little bit more transportation planning. One project that we did was a low water crossing inventory for 3 of our counties. We actually won an innovation award for this one for our approach to how we did that. We were able to collect information in the field and upload it to the cloud while we're out there. We were able to identify kind of good, fair, poor structure conditions for those low water crossings and identify the priority for replacement, mostly how those low water crossings during flooding events can impact emergency response times, but also just general access to communities or rural residential areas. Comprehensive planning has become a really, really popular program, and I think a lot of our regional planning commissions across the state provide this service. In our office, this is one of our more popular programs that we provide. So any community that has planning and zoning ordinances is required by the state to have a comprehensive plan that includes like a future land use map and other components as well to kind of help guide the local elected and appointed officials in making land use decisions, but also guiding how the community is going to grow and develop over the next 10 to 20 years. Before the pandemic, we saw a lot of communities wanting to update their comprehensive plans because it had been several decades since they had done it. But we've seen an even more dramatic increase since the pandemic. I think that, the pandemic made a lot of communities rethink about how their community is functioning, what they really want out of their local communities, since they had to experience things at a hyper local level, maybe for the first time in a long time. But also kind of the onslaught of federal investment that we're seeing. Again, funding follows planning. So communities are realizing that they need to identify improvement projects or what they want to accomplish in their community in a locally developed, publicly bought into plan, so that they can go after these state and federal resources that are coming out just in massive buckets right now. So we've got a number of comprehensive plans that we've completed over the last couple of years, and several more that we've got in the pipeline right now that we're currently working on. And then this is just an example of kind of an innovative comprehensive plan that we actually put online. So this is for the city of Ozark. We made both the traditional kind of PDF and printed version of their comprehensive plan, but also a purely online version. So, on the left-hand side, we've got goals and objectives that as you scroll through those, on the right-hand side, the map will populate and kind of visually demonstrate what we're talking about in those goals and objectives. And then you can also zoom in and zoom out so you can see a lot more details. So here we're talking about future land use for the city of Ozark, and you can zoom in and see, your neighborhood or business districts and see what the community was looking at for future growth for those areas. As we mentioned, every regional planning commission in Missouri is the federally designated economic development district. We all receive support from the Economic Development Administration, and that support is to help us maintain regional comprehensive economic development strategies, or CEDS. Those are 5-year plans as well. Each region is required to maintain those CEDS in order for entities within those regions to be eligible for federal economic development dollars. So we update and maintain those SEDS, and then we also try to help implement them and implement the goals and strategies that were identified. A few examples of some projects that came out of our SEDS in the last couple of years. We have the E-Factory here with Missouri State University. That's kind of like a business incubator and business accelerator. They also work with lots of entrepreneurs. So $1.25 million for an expansion for that facility. The Ozarks Technical Community College received $1 million for an advanced manufacturing center. They had also received another $1 million a few years prior for a diesel mechanics program. And then during the pandemic, we helped Cox College, which is affiliated with Cox Health, with a $2.2 million renovation and expansion of their nursing program at the college here in Springfield. One of the very first economic development projects that we were able to fund when we became an economic development district was the Jordan Valley parking structure that's in downtown Springfield over by Jordan Valley Park. Our organization, we also do a cost of living index for the Springfield Regional Chamber of Commerce. So whenever you hear data about like Springfield being an affordable place to live, that data was collected by our organization and put into a national database for comparison with other communities across the nation. We also provide a revolving loan fund. I think many of the regional planning commissions across Missouri provide a similar loan fund, but not all of them. But it is a pretty flexible program that provides capital to startup businesses and business expansions. That program does partner with local banks. So regional planning commissions typically have a pretty close working relationship with area banks, not only for this program, but for other community reinvestment opportunities as well. Each of the COGs and RPCs in Missouri received COVID-19 recovery funding. We also work quite a bit with economic resiliency just in general. In our area, we successfully received funding for a road improvement that goes into the Springfield Underground industrial complex. And then we also received funding for the Lake Springfield Master Redevelopment Plan. And that was actually associated with a coal power plant that's been decommissioned, and looking at how we can reuse the land and utilize the lake as more of a recreational opportunity for not just the city of Springfield, but for the region, really. Most RPCs work in community development. So you're probably familiar with the Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG. It's a very popular program that RPCs are experts in. It's a very complex and complicated program, lots of federal regulations involved with it. So I highly recommend, if you're looking into that funding opportunity, that you utilize the Regional Planning Commission, because we are experts in that particular program. Our office has used CDBG funds for senior centers in a number of our communities. Also a childhood education center. We've helped rebuild a fire station in Pierce City that was destroyed by a tornado several years ago. And then most recently, actually, this Friday, we're closing out a project in the city of Crane that was a demolition project. So we were able to demolish about 14 kind of abandoned residential structures, and I think one commercial structure as well, to kind of get rid of that blight and the kind of public safety issues that come with those abandoned properties. But then we're also constructing new infrastructure down in Branson to support a new tiny home development for veterans. So in partnership with Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG, we also work with NAP tax credits, or the Neighborhood Assistance Program tax credits, that's offered through the Missouri Department of Economic Development. We also have provided just housing condition studies. This example is with the city of Marshfield, where we did a visual kind of inspection from the public right-of-way of almost 3,000 residential structures. The community was having issues with property maintenance. And so we took a look at, gave them basically an inventory of the maintenance of the properties that we could tell from the public right-of-way. We also provided a review of their public or the property maintenance codes and their zoning codes, and gave them kind of the tools and resources to then host a public meeting and identify what the community wanted the city to really focus their attention on, enforcing tall grass ordinances, or, other structural issues, chipping paint or something like that. So what nuisance or property maintenance issues did the public really want the city to focus their resources on? Like with most towns, their their code enforcement officers are kind of usually operating on a complaint basis, but they were wanting to try to be a little bit more proactive. And that project, again, won another innovation award for our approach, but the public involvement side of it as well was really great. But yeah, we provide a lot of zoning code reviews for our communities as well. So updating codes that really probably haven't been updated since the 70s or 80s or beyond, to make sure that they're dealing with more modern zoning issues. We're seeing a lot of things with nightly rentals or like Airbnb, and other mixed use and commercial versus residential conflict that we are helping communities through. And your zoning code really goes hand in hand with your comprehensive plan update. So if you're looking at either of them, if you're looking at updating your zoning code, you might first look at updating your comprehensive plan so that your code is then the enforcement and the teeth of actually implementing your comprehensive plan and your land use plan. As Cindy mentioned, we all are contracted with SEMA to do county multi-jurisdictional natural hazard mitigation plans. These are done at the county level, but cities, school districts, fire districts, other entities can participate in these 5-year plans as well, to identify projects that can mitigate the impacts of future natural disasters. So if your school district or your community wants like a tornado shelter or safe room, they need to participate in this plan so that they would then be eligible for FEMA funds to help construct those safe rooms. Same thing with low water crossing replacements or culvert replacements, storm sirens, although I'll say FEMA is getting away from funding storm sirens. They're trying to do different technologies like reverse 911, where they text out people in the area to warn them of a storm. But anything that your community or your school district or your local entities would be interested in trying to get federal or state funds to implement or to mitigate future disasters, you should really participate in these county level hazard mitigation plans. And those are updated again every 5 years. We also do a lot of, or a few floodplain buyouts. So in areas that have frequent flooding or lots of damage from floods that we're seeing occur more and more frequently, we can come in and help buy out those properties to help reduce the future loss of life or property from floods. We are currently working with the city of Branson to flood-proof their wastewater treatment plant. It's a $13 million project. Actually, the governor was just down on Friday to help highlight that project because we're about to break ground on it in a couple months. But it's again kind of flood-proofing and hardening some of our public infrastructure. If these wastewater treatment plants go offline, it can be really devastating. And then just in general, we help with regional coordination. We oversee a Homeland Security program. We receive about $400,000 a year to distribute those funds. We have a committee that accepts and reviews project proposals from a number of entities, local governments, police departments, fire departments, the Red Cross, pretty much you name it. They submit an application, and through that oversight committee, they award those funds, and we just administer the program, help with purchasing of equipment. The picture here is a bomb deactivating robot that we were able to purchase for the Springfield Fire Department. And we get lots of other fun stuff like that through the program as well. But like emergency communications vehicles, things that are regionally deployable can help. The intent of the program is to help mitigate the impacts of acts of terrorism, but a lot of this equipment and training can go a long ways with other incidents as well. And then in our area, and I think a lot of RPCs helped coordinate the 2020 census. We're trying to get Missouri's count more accurate and make sure that we're capturing the federal and state dollars that our population deserves. We also help coordinate regional housing discussions. So some RPCs actually own housing units or residential units and develop those. Our organization, we don't actually own property or develop property, but we do host regional housing forums, and we help build collaborations and coordination amongst other housing entities and pairing them with rural communities that are in need of increased housing supply, or we do the demolition projects where we can get rid of dilapidated structures, and then work with maybe some developers or other nonprofits to help improve that local housing stock. And then probably the biggest one that this audience is interested in, of course, grant writing and grant administration. So I've touched on several funding opportunities, but I mean, there's an endless amount of funding opportunities out there. Cindy had mentioned a program that we call the RPC Advantage, and we created that campaign just because of the magnitude of federal funds that were coming out, particularly from the bipartisan infrastructure legislation. And I know it sounds like, regional planning commissions cover a lot of ground and a lot of different topics and areas of expertise, but the reality is, I mean, we can't be everything for everyone all the time. So sometimes each RPC finds their specific niche and their focus area. So we created the RPC Advantage so that when one of our communities or one of our stakeholders comes to us about a project, maybe broadband development, and we haven't necessarily worked directly in broadband before, just as an example, we can reach out to our statewide network through MACOG and say, okay, which RPC has worked on this type of project before? And we call them up, we get kind of the 101 introduction to the program, and then some step-by-step examples of how they were able to complete it. So that statewide network really supports not only us as peer organizations across the state, but also the local communities and stakeholders as well. So again, we provide support not only just to local governments, but to our associate members, partner organizations, and for any community projects or programs that we think will enhance the quality of our communities and enhance the quality or resiliency of our region. This is just a fun little thing, I guess. All the regional planning commissions participate in what we call the intergovernmental review of federal programs, or it's kind of a clearinghouse. So certain federal grant applications require a review by the state and also the local clearinghouse, which would be the Regional Planning Commission, to make sure that we're not duplicating efforts with federally funded projects. So we get to review a lot of federal applications that come through that are within our region, and provide feedback to the state or to the applicant on how that might fit in with other projects or programs that are going on in our region, or kind of give them a green light saying, no, we haven't seen resources being used in that way before. So I know that was very, very quick, and I could spend hours talking about even what just our organization does, but what regional planning commissions do across the state. Again, I like to describe us as both a clearinghouse of information, connecting people to resources, building collaborations, and coordinating projects and convening groups to kind of problem solve issues for communities in our region. But also we act kind of like a nonprofit consultant to a lot of groups. So we can provide services at a much reduced rate or at a free cost to a community because of our partnerships with state and federal agencies that offset the cost of us providing some of that technical assistance services, like through transportation or through economic development or through hazard mitigation. So there's nothing too weird to come to a regional planning commission, and there's usually somebody, if we don't have somebody in-house, there's somebody else either within our peer network through MACOG or somebody else that we're affiliated with that we can connect your community to. So again, visit our websites or visit macog.org and get connected with your regional planning commission. A lot of us are very much behind the scenes organizations. So some folks, this might be your first time even hearing what an RPC or a COG is. And it kind of takes a lot of education and re-education because we do so much, and the breadth of services that we provide is very broad. So we're always happy to talk about what we're able to provide and what we can do for your community. In our region, we always like to set up one-on-one meetings with communities just to fully understand their needs and issues and try to help develop an approach to solving those or implementing their local plans. So I'll give my voice a breath or a break and stop sharing my screen and hand it back over. And I guess we'll take any questions that might arise.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Jason and Cindy, both. That was a wealth of information. So Buffalo has participated with you guys in the comprehensive planning, the hazard mitigation and stuff. I've been a part of those. But for somebody who's never participated, what is the process for them to get started with you?
Just an email or a phone call is the best way. I frequently get the call that says, I'm the mayor of this small town, and Jason, we need a grant. Well, a grant for what? And well, we just need grants or something. So we like to, like I said, set up a meeting with the community and fully understand what their needs are, and then kind of walk them through the typical process of how that typically works. Or if you want to be engaged with a project that's already ongoing, like a hazard mitigation plan, talk to our staff member that oversees that project, and we'll get you definitely plugged in and engaged there. And as I said, funding follows planning. So usually when somebody comes to me asking for a grant of some sort, I ask, okay, well, how much planning or thought have you put into this? Do you have public buy-in? Let's see where we actually need to start to maybe make this project a reality, or see whether this is actually your community's top priority. Maybe the resources are better needed somewhere else. So we like to do those one-on-one meetings and just spend a couple hours getting to know what the actual issues are.
Okay. And so you said email or phone call. If they don't know who's in their area, they can go to which website to find that? I can't remember where that one was on. That
one would be macog.org.
Okay. Okay.
macog.org.
Okay.
And then on there will be a tab that'll take you to all the map that I showed, like of all the regional planning commissions, and it's clickable. So you just locate your county that you're located within, and then find that regional planning commission, and it'll take you to a page that's got their website, their executive director's name, and their executive director's contact information.
Okay. Paula or Cece, do either one of you have any questions? Because I have several, so I can ask a couple more.
I do actually. Coming here as, Missouri Community Betterment, one of the things I was wondering, as you talked about the stakeholders within different communities, are those grant writing and planning services, are those also available to, community betterment organizations or other local community organizations working to make a difference?
I would say that varies by regional planning commission. So for our organization, we try to find a way to yes, and we do, of course, have to cover our costs. So it's really kind of a case-by-case basis. So if it's a project that fits well within the scope of work for a regional planning program that we already have funding through, either through MoDOT or through the Economic Development Administration, and we can provide those services free of charge, then we'll try to do that as much as possible. There are occasional cases where we need to maybe charge a nominal fee, especially if it's a very involved application that's going to take a lot of staff time, and it doesn't really fit within some of the state or federal funding sources that we already have. But typically, it's very rare that we will, turn away another community organization that comes to us for grant writing assistance. So it's just kind of a case-by-case basis. Also, it depends on just the nature of the project itself. Sometimes we can recoup the cost of putting together the application on the back end. So if the project is awarded, then there might be some funding within the grant that can reimburse us for the work that we did. I will say other regional planning commissions have a set hourly rate, and so they'll provide like a proposal, say, we're familiar with this grant type and we know that it's going to take this many hours, and so this is what our going rate is. Other regional planning commissions have kind of like a membership opportunity. So if your community organization becomes a member of the Council of Governments or the RPC, then they provide those services pro bono or at a dramatically reduced rate. So I would just contact your local RPC and kind of get details about it, and they'll probably want more information about the specific project and the funding source before they maybe give you a more clear answer on that. And you're muted, sorry.
And I'll just say that. And I'll say that we do operate the same way as what Jason was saying, but we do welcome the opportunity to speak to any organization to see how we can assist them in any way. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We love hearing about projects in our region and how we can assist them.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I did have a question too. We have, like, as I mentioned, we've done the planning with SIMCOG. For a community that's never done a comprehensive plan, how long does it take, and what all do they need to delve into to kind of put a plan together? Kind of a broad question. A lot there, but
yeah. Well, you know, we always kind of customize our approach to each community, but we do sort of have a standard process, at least planning process, that we like to go through. So well, first, understanding what the community's actual needs are. You know, what are the underlying issues? What are the hot topics? Do they know where the areas of focus actually need to be? So we can maybe build up more on the transportation side or the community facilities side of that plan. We're focused more so on the land use portion. And there's a difference between, you know, what the state requires of a comprehensive plan. If you have planning and zoning at the local level, then you're required to have a comprehensive plan that has a future land use element to it. But if you're a community that doesn't have planning and zoning adopted, then there's no real specific criteria by the state that you have to follow. So we've worked with a number of communities that don't have planning and zoning to create a community plan, just to create a vision and kind of a guiding document for their public elected officials to make decisions. So that, again, we've got more of that public feedback, which one of the first things that we do is form a community planning committee. We put together a community-wide survey. We've been really successful in getting great responses to those community surveys. And then that way it makes sure that the vision and the goals in that community plan or the comprehensive plan isn't just, you know, one city councilman's pet project, that it actually has a lot of community buy-in, and that they're getting direct kind of direction from the residents and the businesses that they serve within their community. So we look at the holistic community in most cases: housing, transportation, sidewalk, community facilities, community services, even, you know, getting public information out there, of course, land use, and growth and development opportunities. We look at public infrastructure, so water and wastewater, public services like police and fire, and a number of things. And so we go through, it's probably at least a 12-month process, probably sometimes closer to 18 months. And we put together that holistic kind of comprehensive plan and future vision for the community, and then help them through kind of the adoption process with the board of the zoning commission, and then the board of aldermen or the city council.
okay. All right, and then I'm going to ask one more thing, because you mentioned this, and we dealt with this a little bit too. The census hit at the worst time possible, right in the middle of the pandemic. I personally got lots of questions about, why should I do this? Why do I need to do this? So from a council of governments, a planning commission standpoint, how important is having those accurate numbers when it comes to bringing in funds to a community?
Well, kind of, it's multi-fold. One, we know it's estimated that every person that was missed in the census means that Missouri loses out on about $1,200 per year, and that's for 10 years. And that's based on the federal programs that are appropriated to the states by population. And so for every person, the state of Missouri and our local communities miss out on at least $1,200 a year per person for 10 years. And so that's a huge economic impact to our community. And that's for a lot of social service programs, for transportation, for several public health programs. So that's one way that it's very important for us to get accurate count of our communities. Mm-hmm. But also we use in planning a lot of demographic data to better understand our communities so that we know who we're planning with and who we're planning for. So are we going to be having we're going to have an aging population across the state. I think in the next couple of years, 25% of the Missouri population is going to be above age 60. So we need to be planning for an aging population in our local communities. And what does that look like for your local communities? What services, what features do we need to plan for? But also economic data, with a lot of federal and state grant programs, we look at community income levels in order to qualify for grants. And we look at a number of demographic information. Again, making sure that we are reaching the right people when we do the public engagement component of a plan, that we're being inclusive and that we've got all voices represented in the vision that's created for the community. We don't know, whether we've been representative of the full community or not, unless we have solid demographic data of what the community makeup actually is. And then again, I mean, who we're planning for, what are the demographic issues that and economic issues that we need to be planning for in the future.
Okay, great. Because I know there was a lot of misunderstanding of why they were needing all this information. And I think it's important for people to really know why and what that can do for their community if they miss out on having a complete count. So thank you. Does anybody else have any other questions? We are about close to end of time today. Well, thank you, Jason and Cindy, both for joining us today. I will have this on our YouTube channel with some information, but if you want to reach out and find which one of the 19 organizations across the state you are part of, you can go to MACOG, which is MACOG.org. They have a map there you can find for your area. If you are in Southwest Missouri, SIMCOG, you can go to www.smcog.org. And then Cindy, what is your website up there?
www.marktwaincog.com.
Okay. All right. So any of those, if you want to reach out to Jason or Cindy or someone else for your region. Also, thank you, both of you, for joining us, everybody else for joining us. We do these on the third Wednesday of every month at noon. If you want to know more about Missouri Community Betterment, you can go to our website at mocommunitybetterment.com. You can also find us on Facebook. You can subscribe to our newsletters and look for these on our YouTube channel. And until next time, we will hope to connect with you through our newsletters and on those social media platforms. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.